There's a Polish proverb often used today, not my circus, not my monkeys. It's basically a way of saying that the problem is not my problem. But sometimes it's worth making it my problem. In February 2022, Russian forces entered the eastern border of Ukraine. Soon thousands of Ukrainian civilians began fleeing their country in the hopes of avoiding the horrors of war. My Milwaukee friend Rob and his wife Karen were watching the news and seeing the people cross the borders. Karen exclaimed, "Can't anybody do something?" And Rob said, "Let's see." He called his friend Dale in California and me in Nashville. We all decided to do something. We would go to Ukraine and help. We set 3 ground rules. We'd raise as much money as we could, we'd pay all of our own personal travel expenses, and we'd personally deliver the supplies to the people who needed them the most. We'd go in May. Rob has a good friend who lives in Vienna who could assist us with vehicle rental and supply purchases. Rob's also a member of the Milwaukee Rotary, and he began looking for a similar Rotary branch in Poland near the Ukrainian border. He found one in Jaroslaw, Poland, a small city about 30 miles from Ukraine. None of us had ever set up a GoFundMe, and I was pleasantly surprised how easy and straightforward the process was. We called ourselves 3 guys on a mission, wrote detailed plans of what we hoped to accomplish, and put it out there. In about 2 weeks, we had raised close to $17,000. I wrote on my Facebook page and in some local groups what we were attempting to do and requested t-shirts from both Nashville and Milwaukee. 30 t-shirts from both places were donated. One night when I couldn't sleep, I Googled Nashville and Ukraine to see if there was any connection. Immediately, a story came up about a local pilot who had decided to go over to Ukraine and help the local residents go through this nightmare. Chris Tiller was his name. I found him on Facebook and I promised to bring him some supplies. Speaking of supplies, I was initially under the impression that they might need food, underwear, and childcare items. Boy, was I wrong. What they really needed was tourniquets, water filters, and special bandages that stop the bleeding out in the field until help arrives. With some of the money that I had raised, I placed an order for a whole bunch of those exact items. All 3 of us were flying to Vienna, Austria. Rob out of Milwaukee, Dale out of California, and me out of Nashville. I arrived at the airport with 5 huge suitcases of recently purchased items and figured I was going to have to pay a small fortune for bag checks. I purchased 1 checked bag worth and approached the baggage counter with the other 4. I explained the situation with the Ukrainian refugees to the agent, who didn't seem too interested. He told me that it didn't look good, but to wait while he conferred with some baggage handlers in the back. 10 minutes later, he came back and told me if I were to ever do this again, I should bring better documentation. For now, load those bags up and get to my gate. Thanks, American Airlines. You saved me $600. We met up in Austria and checked into an Airbnb. The next morning, we picked up our rental vehicle, a mid-sized SUV, and then drove over to the place where we had online purchased the majority of our supplies. We found 2 huge pallets packed with supplies all ready to be loaded. The SUV would barely handle one of those pallets, and we'd probably need to leave 1 guy behind. We had a 7-hour trip in front of us, so I was looking pretty glumly at multiple trips to make this happen. Our Austrian friend came to the rescue. We returned to the rental place and traded our SUV for a good-sized box truck. This could easily hold all of our supplies and had a big front seat for the 3 of us to share. It was a manual transmission too. From Vienna, we had the choice to go through Hungary, east, or north into the Czech Republic. One of my bags had been lost for the night, but was waiting for me at the Vienna airport the next morning. This put us on a closer track to go north to the Czech Republic, so off we went. First, a stop in Krakow. Our drive was mostly north through the Czech Republic and into Poland. We stopped for lunch at a Subway, which was surprisingly similar to the same sandwich places in the US. Hey, we were on a mission and we didn't have time for a local place just yet. Soon after we got on the road, I received an encrypted text message on my Signal account. It had been suggested to me that Signal was the way to go for delicate communications with people we may be dropping supplies to. Chris Tiller, the pilot from Nashville, was in Ukraine, but his associate Julie was in Krakow, Poland, and it just happened to be right on our way. We exited the highway and maneuvered through the tight streets of Krakow until we came to a huge group of Soviet-looking apartment buildings, all Unitarian and colorless. We texted Julie, and she came out of one of the buildings, greeted us warmly, and then posed for pictures with us. I was initially concerned about posting pictures of our new friends, but she told us she was the social media director for the Refugee Runners group, and all of those pictures were fine. When asked what type of items she wanted, she replied, "We'll take whatever you can give us." I gave her a huge suitcase full of tourniquets, water filters, some Nashville t-shirts, and bandages. I also gave her a big duffel bag full of toothbrushes, socks, kids' Crocs, and a bunch of other items which had been donated to the cause by my Milwaukee friends. Then we got back on the road. Driving in Poland was an eye-opening and beautiful experience. Wherever we'd go, we would come upon huge fields full of gorgeous yellow flowers. I posted pictures of these on Facebook, and some of my friends informed me that they were rapeseed fields, which, when harvested, produced canola oil. Most of our driving was on the Polish highways, and they were extremely well maintained and had these huge LED displays showing messages, many of which were encouragements for the Ukrainian people. Our introduction to the Jaroslaw Rotary Club happened at a small hotel. We arrived at about 10 a.m. and turned out that the hotel owner was one of the local Rotarians. We met him when we arrived, and he immediately comped us 3 separate rooms and then invited us to have breakfast at their buffet. At about 11 o'clock, a huge group of older gents arrived at the hotel and set up a long meeting table at the hotel's restaurant. Soon, 2 women arrived, and we discovered that they were representatives of 2 Ukrainian Rotary clubs, both of whom hoped to receive a portion of the supplies we had brought with us. Few of the attendees spoke English, but they had brought 2 translators with them, and the Ukrainian women also spoke reasonable English, so we were able to discuss the situation. We spoke of what was going on in Ukraine and the devastation that was happening. Our new friends from the local Rotary set up a bucket brigade to unload all of our donated supplies. It was a smooth operation, and with 15 men and 2 women, it took all of about a half hour to move everything into an area of the hotel in the back near the kitchen. The president of the local Rotary then informed us that they had planned a dinner that evening in our honor, and would we be able to make it? Of course, we said yes. That evening, in a very nice hotel in Jaroslaw, we arrived to find a huge U-shaped table which could accommodate about 40 or so people. Every 2 or 3 chair lengths was deposited a bottle of Jack Daniels and another bottle of Polish vodka. The dinner started off with some short introductions, and then all the Rotarians sang a birthday song to one of the elder statesmen in attendance. Well, I whispered to my comrades, and when everybody sat down to eat, the 3 of us remained standing and belted out a good old English version of Happy Birthday. Our hosts from the Jaroslaw Rotary were patient and fantastic and were more than willing and proud to show us around their city and the larger city of Przemysl. They also provided a translator. Jaroslaw to Przemysl is kind of like Murfreesboro to Nashville. But first, a trip to the local refugee camp. A local Tesco supermarket had been converted to a refugee center. The Tesco was about as big as a Walmart and had been retrofitted with dividers and bedding so that families could rest and stay together. We weren't allowed into those areas, but there were hundreds, if not thousands, of these beds set up. The refugee center was the parking lot and adjacent areas of the Tesco store. Food providers like the World Kitchen, as well as smaller ones, set up cooking facilities and tables, offering free food and meals to anyone who arrived. There was a child center which appeared from a distance like a small circus tent with trampolines and an ad hoc playground. There was also a tractor trailer which had loads of pet supplies. Refugees were allowed to bring with them up to 2 dogs, 2 cats, 2 birds, and some other species. All the pet supplies were free, and the volunteers were kind and helpful in making humans and animals as comfortable as possible. There was some law that restricted the refugee stays at these types of camps for 24 hours before they needed to be moved to a more permanent location. All day long, buses would arrive empty and depart loaded with humans and pets to countries unknown. As we were finishing up our visit to the refugee camp, I received another encrypted signal message. Could we drop one of our other bags off to an intermediary? We happened to be about 10 minutes away from the drop point. After driving a mile or two through a bumpy, gravelly road, we came upon a huge bus repair facility. My message told me to ask for Gregor, so I walked into the business with my translator and began yelling out, "Gregor, Gregor!" In a minute or two, an older gentleman who had obviously been working on a bus came over to me and asked what I wanted. "I have a package to you," I said. He looked confused. "Anything else?" "Nope, just the package." It felt like we were doing a drug buy, but he just looked at us, grabbed my large suitcase, and rolled it away. "Let's get out of here," I said. We drove quickly back to the main road. 10 minutes later, I received a new encrypted message. "Package received, many thanks." The next day, we drove south through Slovakia and then into Hungary, where we spent the night in a lovely Airbnb in Budapest. The next day, we drove back to Austria, and for the first and only time, were stopped at a country border for an inspection. The armed soldier took a quick look into our mostly empty truck and wished us a pleasant journey into Vienna. So for 1 week in May of 2022, 3 American guys, none of us doctors, soldiers, or aid workers, decided that this was our problem. We stepped into the circus, we took care of the monkeys, and the truth is, we didn't solve the war, but we showed up. We helped some people, and maybe, just maybe, we reminded others that when the world is burning, you don't need to save the whole thing, just carry a bucket.